Hey friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at another knife by QSP. This is the Deva. I looked up what Deva means, I'll tell you in just a minute. But this is a D2 blade steel with titanium gray coating. They make a version with serrated, partially serrated with black titanium coating, but D2 steel as well. And it's a multifunction knife. It's got tools as well and a glass breaker. G10. If you're interested, stick around. The full review's coming right now. All right, let's get at it. You've got a card in the box with the knife saying thank you, and it's got some basic dimensions and specs on it. You got a nice box that's got a fitted space for the knife, and it's that black with a little gold on the box, so it's a nice presentation box. Hopefully the sound's good because I recorded this entire review and the sound was just bad. So I got to redo this. A Rat 1, very much the same size. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter in the blade, a little bit shorter in the handle, but not much. So yeah, this is a full-size knife to be sure. We've got the titanium coating on here. It's a fairly dark gray, nice D2 steel, drop point blade. Nice swedge there. You can see it as I move it back and forth, the light reflecting off that swedge. Nice piercing tip if you need to do that kind of work, piercing through leather or, what have you. Not a Scandinavian grind. A saber grind. QSP logo on there. It's a little in your face for me. You've already got QSP here on the pocket clip. So take it off of one of those two places. But then again, you can take off the pocket clip and use it without. Some people like it that way. So I just don't like it that bright. D2 right here, jimping there. It's a fairly aggressive jimping, but it doesn't hurt. Well, maybe if you push super, super hard, but I did a bunch of cutting with this, all kinds of materials, like I do for every test. And it didn't get too hot in the hand, and the coating held up quite well. I think there's one little spot near the tip here where it didn't remove the coating. It just put a little bit of a defect on the coating. Yeah, don't get too close to the blade, the cutting edge. I mean, the blade's safe. The cutting edge is what you want to stay away from. Decent grind on there at the factory. A little bit of variability from, this part, the belly part of the blade to the straight section here, but pretty good. I'll give you all the specs a little bit later. We've got a very nice sharpener's choil right here. The flipper has got no jimping on it anywhere. Works well. Pull back. The knife comes out. Just nice and easy. Don't need a lot of pressure. And you can do sort of a light switch. Oh, that was the light switch. You can do a little button press, but you have to do it back on an angle, of course. And it opens up as well. We've got steel ball bearings in here and a steel detent. The detent is very well done on this guy. Holds it in there. You can shake it as hard as you want, well, as hard as I want, and I can make a knife come open fairly well. And it stays in there. So that's really good detent. And the detent is not too hard to open the knife at all. So keeps the blade in when you want it and lets you deploy it when you want it. That's the perfect detent. No blade play, side to side, up and down, nice and tight. The lock up here between the tang of the blade and the lock arm here from the liner lock engages perfectly, just the minimal amount that it needs to be fully engaged. And yet there's lots of room for it to wear across over the life of the knife. So that's a good job. Great access to the liner lock release right there. Easy to get your thumb in there to, close the knife. And if you're left-handed, some knives are harder for us lefties to close when we're doing this. And I was thinking at the same time, that's why it looked kind of awkward. I can do it fairly fast on my left hand without, any issues. Pocket clip, as you clearly see, is tipped down, which I don't mind at all. Some people do. So if you don't like tip down, well, there you go. That could be a deal breaker for you. We've got tools on here. They've got little pockets for the thumb studs on these tools to go into, and it's hard to open the knife just pushing on the thumb studs because of this. You just got a little bit of a bump there, and it's hard to get a grip. Yeah, I have to get my nail behind it to get it started. Focus again. And then I can open the knife. But the mechanism that they got in there, it's very simple, but it's well made. It wants to stay, see that? I try to push it, but it wants to stay open. That's good. This ripper is nice and sharp. Rips quite well. And on this side, we've got a bottle opener. I would have preferred a can opener over a bottle opener, but we've got a bottle opener right here. And, there you have it. That works quite well. Glass breaker back here, tungsten carbide tip on there. If you don't like glass breakers on your knives, this guy's pretty easy to deal with. I've got flat-sided pliers here, no teeth on it. Give it a grab, and you can just get rid of it if you want to. And it's gone. And now you've got a little bit of a stud back here that you could use to tie paracord around because there's no lanyard hole. So if you like paracord lanyards, but you don't like a tungsten carbide tip, that's all you need to do. I'm going to be putting it back on, of course. If you really want to get rid of that, you can take the knife apart and even get rid of that little space with that threaded bit right there. You can just get rid of it. Since this is the second time doing it, and I took it apart after I did the video, I generally leave my knives all together all the time. I just noticed I did not tighten this up properly. That's all that's going on here. That bit of a space right here, that's only because I didn't tighten it up when I put it back together. So I'm going to go, no, that's upstairs. And with my knees not loving me, I'm not going back upstairs now. It had great fit and finish there. The only fit and finish issue is maybe on this side, there's a little bit of a space there. You can catch your nail between those two G10 pieces. On this side, it's better. You can still just barely catch a nail, barely if you want to, but not too bad. I like that quite well, especially since these are removable. If they glued these together and had one piece of, made it like one piece of G10, they'd probably have a much tighter fit. But you can take off the green separately from the black. So there's no skeletonizing on this thing. In fact, why don't I show you the insides of the knife right now that I recorded earlier. So here it is taken apart. I was wrong. Steel ball bearings, not ceramic. And no skeletonizing. That's why it's heavy. So it's built well. It's built right for the price point that it's at. So it's a decent price for what you get. Could they have done some skeletonizing? I actually wish they would have done a little bit just to help the balance point get a little closer to where your index finger goes. So I'm going to put it back together and now you can see the rest of the review. It's a decent knife on the inside. It's well built. Structure's good. Comfortable in hand. You know, it's long and straight. We've got nice rounded surface on the G10. Both on the spine and on the belly of the handle. Very straight and simple. You know, you think you might need some finger choils. Not really. I didn't really need them. This release here for the liner lock, the space for it, I mean, acts a bit like a finger choil. And of course, the flipper tab acts like a guard. So it's quite good that way. The liners are also titanium coated, so works quite well. Blade alignment when the knife is closed. Let me squeeze that together so you don't see that space right there. Almost perfect. Like, that's not bad at all. I like this knife. That jimping there didn't get any issues in my pocket. Pocket clip, yeah, you've got a deep pocket clip, which I really like. These screws don't get in the way because they are beside and not in line with the pocket clip. Just the tongue of it, it's a little bit bent out further than I would like. But it goes in and out of a pocket very well. Of course, it climbs over easily. I will be bending that down a little bit in the future if I keep it. And totally hidden. Holds on well. No problems at all with the pocket clip. Let's go through all the specs and all that information now, because I'm sure some of you are wondering about this thing. Do you really want it or don't you? The weight of this knife, 162 grams, 5.7 ounces. Now, they could have done some skeletonizing because at the same time, and I call this one of the specs, it's the balance point. It's very close to where the seam is, but just on the black side. I would rather have the balance point right there. And if they would have skeletonized the liners a little bit somehow, maybe just some little holes, that would be moved a little further this way because this side would be lighter. It gets heavier because you've got all these extra tools and stuff in here. But in any case, it's very tip light, which was good for, any quick movements or delicate cutting and stuff. So it's not bad. It's just different than some people like. The sharpness of the edge from the factory, 150 best. That's good. No problem there of how sharp it is. The length of the cutting edge, 9.61 centimeters, 3.78 inches. Tip to the closest spot on the handle, 9.8 centimeters, 3.86 inches, so just shy of 4 inches. The blade thickness, 3.38 millimeters, just over an eighth of an inch at 0.133. Maybe the coating was the difference. That was my dog who just sneezed. The blade depth, that's this measurement here, about an inch up from the choil. 2.41 centimeters, 0.95 of an inch. The thickness of the edge behind the grind is 0.68 of a millimeter, which is 0.027 of an inch, so 27 thousandths of an inch thick. That's right where the coating ends and the grind starts. That's the thickness behind the grind. It's a little thicker than I prefer, but not crazy. It's not bad. Grind angle is, which side's which here? There we go. No, this side. This side that says D2, this one was done at 18.1 degrees. This side was done at 22.8 degrees. But that's not bad. When I sharpen it the first time, I'll sharpen it to 20 degrees per side, and it'll be just about the same. It will have a better edge, of course, because I don't have to use a big wheel and do them in a hurry like a guy at a factory or a gal at a factory has to. Let's talk about the specs on the handle now. The handle length, not counting the glass breaker, is 12.21 centimeters, 4.81 inches. The grip area in here, it's about 12 centimeters, about 4.5 inches. Those are rough numbers for the grip area. The handle thickness, at the thickest spot, because you can see these lines from the G10, that is thicker right in the middle than it is at the edges. 1.62 centimeters, 0.638 of an inch. Not bad at all for a big knife. The handle depth, that's this dimension here, including these tools, 2.75 centimeters, 1.08 inches. And when the knife's closed, it's the same because the blade gets totally tucked away. And the total length of this knife is 22.6 centimeters. Oh, I forgot to put the length in inches. And that is almost 8 3/4, not quite 3/4, but if you add the glass breaker, it's 8 7/8. Yeah, I held that upside down for you guys. Sorry about that. So yeah, it's a good knife. I like, the size and everything for it. Just generally saying it's a good knife. How much does this knife cost? Well, this knife, this Deva, by the way, do you know what Deva means? Basically it means demon. And I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it says, Deva is an Avestan language term for a particular sort of supernatural entity with disagreeable characteristics. So it's not only a demon, it's an evil demon. And this thing does have some disagreeable characteristics. But before we do that, let's talk about the price. So basically, a $45 knife in American dollars. A little bit more on Amazon. I've got a link for Amazon below. I found that Nebo Knives in Australia has it, and that is 84.95 Australian dollars. And Australian dollars are worth less than American dollars. And in the European Union, you can buy it from knifestore.nl, that's in the Netherlands, for, 51.79 euros. Well, I didn't find this in Canada at any supplier that I know of. So that's the cost and everything. Now let's talk about the fit and finish, what I like and don't like, stuff like that. I really like this tungsten glass breaker as a glass breaker because it really does have, a different section at the tip. It's not all tungsten. It's just right at the tip. There's that section. And it works really well. I smashed up a little bit of glass and I smashed up some ceramics. it works just fine. No problem at all. So if you want a glass breaker on a knife, this one's not bad. I like the flipper. Flips well. I already showed you that. I don't mind the pocket clip at all. Comfortable in hand for long-term use. I don't like these tools. And the problem is access. I wish that some of the G10 here was removed or sunk down, made thinner. You can't get behind it very well. You can see that? I'm not even holding it straight yet. Now it's straight up and down and it disappears. So what I have to do is I have to get my thumb behind there to get it to start going, my thumbnail. I would like to be able to just push with the meat of my thumb. There we go, I got it that time, but usually I can't. But can you imagine if your fingers are wet or cold? That's not going to open up easily at all. With this current structure, I can easily just take this green G10 off and make it a little bit thinner back here so that I can get behind it and so I can push on the flat side of one of these studs instead of trying to push on the rounded top. Designers at QSP and any other knife designers looking, if you want to do a multi-tool knife, don't do a bottle opener, do a can opener. Because if this is a survival knife, I can open bottles with just about anything, but cans take a little bit more work. So it's good to have a can opener instead of a bottle opener. And very often a can opener can also be used to open up bottles. It's just going to do more damage to the bottle top, that's all. So can openers are better. Now you could grind the edge of this. I don't know what kind of steel this is. So the chance is this is something a little bit softer and it might, deteriorate quickly if you put a sharp beveled side on it like a real can opener like this. And, then you could open cans, but nah, you don't want to modify a knife that you already have, right? You want it right the first time. So I like how comfortable it is in the hand. It's not too aggressive in the jimping. Decent area to rest your thumb. You can sneak up and do work with a tip if you want to. Any grip you can think of works just fine, unless you have to put your thumb over the end. If you're a thumb over the end guy, you might want to get rid of the glass breaker. The coating protects the D2 from corrosion. Of course, D2's got a fair bit of chromium in it already, but protection is good. And I usually don't like coatings a lot, but this one actually is fairly durable. On budget knives, often the coating is garbage, but this QSP coating is actually quite good in my testing. Smooth action, great detent. The liner release is awesome. Pocket problems are, pocket clip tip. Hard to open this. And not much more, really. It's a good knife. It's built well. It looks plain and practical. This is a good knife to take on a hiking trip. Maybe putting in a prepper bag, glove box in a vehicle. Maybe not so much an EDC, especially if you're an urbanite. But maybe it's a good EDC if you are a rural person living in the country somewhere. But I did find out, I contacted QSP talking to them about these tools back here, and they also told me that this has a low production run for these knives, and they're not going to do another production run of them. So if you kind of like this, buy it when you can, because if you wait too long, they'll all be gone. And once they're gone, they won't come back. Now, there might be stores that run out of stock and they can get some more stock. But once QSP has shipped all the knives, they're not going to make any more. That's what I meant. So, not too bad of a knife. I kind of like it. In any case, decent knife, good steel, well built, some minor flaws. But overall, it's a good knife. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.